want you to think for a second, right? Think about somebody that you admire, somebody that you look up to. Have they ever tagged you in something? Or, if you don't have social media, they ever made you feel special? They ever give you a shout out or said something about you or recognized you like we did just now with the Double Dog Dare-a-thon? They knew your name. They said something to you. They acknowledged you. They wrote you a personal note when they autographed their record and gave it to you or whatever. Like, think about somebody that you look up to or admire, and they go out of their way to acknowledge you. It feels good to be noticed. And it particularly feels good to be noticed by somebody you admire and look up to, right? They know my name, or they recognized I did a good job, or I was recognized for this achievement, or whatever it is, right? It's nice to be put on somebody's close friend list where they know you, right? There's even a feature on, depending on the platform, where if you're on Instagram, for instance, if you're sharing your story, you can have a personal, like close friends that only they can see your story. There's things, and it's good to be in the inner circle with somebody. It's good to feel like you're included, like you've got somebody who knows you, because knowing somebody and them knowing you is what life is really all about. God created us for relationships with himself and with each other. And so when you're known, particularly by somebody you admire, it feels good. And that's something that is worth sharing. It's like, if I were to be an aspiring actor, right? And I wished to portray Luke Skywalker. And then I post a little self-made movie with myself as Luke Skywalker. And the Mark Hamill, who played Luke Skywalker, comments on it and tags me and shares it with his friends. I'd be like, Mark Hamill, the real Luke Skywalker, saw my thing. Like, I'd be sharing that to everybody, right? That'd be so cool, right? Who's your favorite band or music to listen? Okay, I'm going to hate myself for saying this, but everybody knows Taylor Swift. Maybe I'll go with Justin Bieber. Okay, let's say Justin Bieber hears the song you recorded on GarageBand. He goes, yo, check out @Zach Wilkins. This song is fire, puts the fire emoji, shares it out to all his followers. I suddenly get millions of followers overnight, right? It's a good feeling. Justin Bieber liked my song, right? It feels good to be recognized. It feels good to be noticed. Sometimes, though, when it comes to the things that are worth sharing, the most important things, namely the gospel, that sharing the hope and love of Jesus, we don't know how to do that. God specifically tagged us and called us out and shouts us out and recognizes us and died for us and knows us individually and intimately. He knows everything about you. And that's something worth sharing. Because those who don't have the hope yet need to have it and need to recognize, even those of us maybe who grew up in church and know the things but don't know God truly for ourselves. That's something worth sharing. We need that good news. We need God to fill our entire hearts. And one of the ways we do that is by praying for those around us. How do you show the love of Jesus and do what is worth sharing in a way that is effective and powerful? So one of the things that I want to do is go to a passage from 1 Samuel. Last week we talked about the prophet Samuel from the Old Testament, his calling where God called him to be a prophet, and he's God's mouthpiece to his people. When God speaks to his people, he uses his prophets like Samuel to communicate his message. And so this is in Samuel's life, and this is a point in time where God's people were rebellious and they were disobedient. And when we all have this tendency, this is a human tendency, right? For good or bad, we have this tendency to want to mirror those that we admire. We want to be like them. If somebody that we follow or somebody that we admire and look up to is into something, we want to get into that thing. Oh, you're watching this show? I'm going to start watching that show because what's all the hype about? I'm going to become a fan. If somebody is going to places that I want to be like them, I'm going to go to the places they're going to. I'm going to literally follow in their footsteps, right? We have this tendency to mirror the people that we look up to and to become like them and do the things that they do, start saying the things that they say, adapt their language and terminology. We do this in life. And so in this story, we see where God's people are trying to do that, except it's not in a good way. It's in the worst way possible. Check this out. This is in 1 Samuel chapter 8. It says, so all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, you are old and your sons do not follow your ways. Now, appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have. Right? Now, what you have to recognize about the nation of Israel this time is they had a form of government set up called a theocracy. And no government on earth today operates this way. But a theocracy is where God is the head of the government. God is the leader of the people. And he appointed judges and prophets to be his mouthpiece and to run and rule the law of the land. And everybody submitted to the authority of God, ultimately. The problem was, they looked at people like Samuel and God's appointed people, and they said, we don't like you. We want what those people have over there. We want a king, somebody we can point to say, look at that person. That's who we follow. That's our leader. But we can't do that with God. Nobody can see God. So we want a king, just like all those other people have. Now, check out what happens next. When they said this, give us a king to lead us, it displeased Samuel. So he spat in their face and he said, you're wrong and here's why and this is why and you should know your place. God's way better than other king. No, this isn't what he does actually. This is what we would want to do. Is tell people off, tell them how they're wrong. But Samuel doesn't do that. He takes a more humble approach. This displeased Samuel, so he prayed to the Lord. He didn't respond. He took their criticism and decided to pray about it. And the Lord told him, listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not that they have, listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king. And this is God speaking. As they have done from the day I brought them up and out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights. In other words, God does here what he has always done throughout history and what he continues to do to this day. He gives us exactly what we want. We can choose to follow him or reject him. Now, just like the modern day retelling with the Pokemon cards, God values each and every one of us and will stop at nothing to reach us. And he communicates us on the regular in order to effectively let us know his love for us. In fact, he sent his son to die on our behalf so that all of us could find the hope and peace and love that we were meant to through our relationship with Jesus. But he's not going to force us. We're not robots. He gives us free will, the choice to walk away. So just like he did through Samuel and giving them warnings, he's given us his word. He's warned us, hey, do things my way and it'll work out better for you because I designed life and I know the best way it's supposed to be lived. So just follow as I say, not because I want to enslave you, but because I want you to have true freedom on this life, on this earth. But if you'd like to walk away, I'll let you. You can do things your own way. You can be your own king. And so he tells Samuel, warn them, but ultimately give them what they want. And so he does. And you and I, when we're confronted with the way that people treat us, when people wrong us, when people call us out, when people criticize us, we have the opportunity to do one of two things. We can either respond in the moment with our flesh, with what we want to say, with what we think is right, or we can hit pause and go talk to God and gain a fresh perspective. Samuel knew that he could gain a new perspective when talking with God. Right? There's a term called atomization, which is a big term, but it just means this. Have you guys ever heard the phrase, you miss the forest for the tree? All that means is as you looked at a situation with a magnifying glass and looked at the smallest detail, but you missed the whole picture. Right? It's like when they make movies. They have all kinds of lenses that they use on cameras. They use wide-angle lenses where you can see a lot in the frame, and they also use zoom lenses or telephoto lenses where they crop in real close. They're called tight shots, right? If the entire movie that you're watching is with a telephoto lens and it's tight shots all zoomed in, you can't see the context of what's going on. You would not be able to pay attention to the movie. You would not understand what's happening. You would miss the greater context of what's going on, which is why movies have what's called establishing shots, the wide-angle views where you see everything in the frame, everything in the picture, and know what's going on. It gives you context, right? And when somebody wrongs us, when they do something to hurt us, whether intentionally or unintentionally, when people say something and we are wrong, and it is a true wrong. It's not like we perceived they did something wrong. It's they actually did something wrong and we were the victim. We have one of two options. We can use a telephoto lens and look at only the wrong they did to us. And when we see that person or hear about that person, all we think about is the wrong they did to us. Or we can put on a wide angle lens and see the bigger picture. That person isn't rejecting you, they're rejecting their Father in heaven. And you have the opportunity to gain a new perspective, to change the lens through which you see that person in that situation. You can take a personal offense and treat them as such, disregard them, write them off, or you can choose to see them the way that God does, with the whole picture in mind, because each and every person is a work in progress. And sometimes their worst tendencies will come out at you, but our job isn't to hold them accountable for that. Our job is to love them through it. Now, it doesn't mean to be a doormat. It doesn't mean not to set boundaries, but it does mean to see them through a godly lens. Their behavior towards you is not necessarily an indication of how God sees them, right? Samuel himself needed a reminder to see people the way that God sees them. And we need that too. There's been times in my life where I thought I knew best. Sometimes still to this day, I think I know best. Right? Think about a time where you knew you were right. You knew it. But your friends were trying to tell you otherwise. What would it take for you to believe your friends when they tell you you're wrong? And use that approach when you approach others who have wronged you. When people have wronged us, we need to see them as God sees them. And so Paul, he says this when he's talking to the early church leaders in Rome. He says in Romans chapter 12, verse 9 through 13, he says, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need and practice hospitality. Right? There's one part of that verse I want to hone in on and focus because I think it's the key to how we process this and how we actually share what's worth sharing to even those that we perceive or those who have actually wronged us. Right? He says, be faithful in prayer. That's the part that if we fail to do that, we're going to get this wrong almost every time. Because when somebody has wronged us, then it's going to be very difficult to see things objectively. And so we have to be faithful in prayer. Let me tell you something. When you faithfully pray for people, it will soften your heart towards them. If you are angry towards somebody, try praying for them. Jesus said, turn the other cheek and pray for your enemies and those who persecute you. He doesn't say that for no reason. Right? It's outrageous then, and it sounds outrageous today. But it is almost more for your own heart than it is for theirs at times. Because if you're angry at somebody, but you begin to faithfully pray for them, then what you do is you stop taking personal offense to their behavior, and you start seeing them through God's eyes. And you want what's best for them. You want restoration. You want them to be whole and complete and not held back by whatever they did. When you pray for somebody, it softens your heart towards them. Be faithful in prayer towards people that it's worth sharing the gospel to. Right? When we're faithful to something, we do that thing frequently. If you're faithful to sports, you play and practice regularly. If you are faithful to dancing or singing or drawing or designing, you'll hone your skills to work on your craft. Right? The things that you are faithful to often show up in your habits and your routines, reflecting your personality. The things that we are faithful to shape who we become. And so if you want to be the kind of person that sees people through God's eyes and can continually share what's worth sharing to those around you, you must be faithful in prayer. Be faithful in things that will actually change the world. My question for you is, what are the things that you are faithful in? There's a guy that was on my floor in college. His name was Daniel Bays. Right? He's a missionary in the Balkans right now. He's doing great things for the kingdom. And we were friends in college, but we weren't that close. But I'll tell you what, he is faithful in the smallest ways that seem like they're not a big deal, but they're actually quite significant. Right? He's the kind of guy that I have never seen angry, that I've almost never seen without a smile on his face. He's always brightening the days of those that he interacts with. Right? And I've been out of college for like 11 years now, and to this day, every year on my birthday, on August 4th, I know I will have a Facebook message from him wishing me happy birthday and asking how he can pray for me and letting me know that he's actively praying for me in that moment. He has this little habit, and I've talked to other people that I went to college with, and he does the same thing with them, people that I know he wasn't that close to, but he's friends on Facebook with them. He has a habit of waking up every morning, getting on Facebook, seeing whose birthday it is, and individually messaging them a personal message, letting them know, I'm praying for you, happy birthday, is there anything I can pray for you specifically? And it's a small thing, but that's the kind of person he is. And his habits reveals the kind of person he is. My question for you is what are the things that you're faithful to? What are the things that you're faithful in your life? And what does that say about who you are? Right? Prayer, it's all about communication and speaking with and listening to God. And if you want to be faithful in prayer, it will change everything about your life and your relationships. So, Paul continues in Romans chapter 12. He says this, bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. It's worth reiterating. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but willing to associate with people in low position. Do not be conceited. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. In other words, if there's going to be conflict, if there's going to be a lack of peace, don't let it be on your part. Do everything in your power to give people the benefit of the doubt, to give people the grace that you wish you had when you make things, make mistakes and do things wrong, right? If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with those around you, right? Be faithful in prayer so that you can learn to love people better, right? Sharing the good news should start with prayers. And so if we take that on, it will radically change our own lives, the lives of those around us, and our entire community. The gospel is absolutely worth sharing. And sharing it should start with prayer. Prayer for those in your lives, prayer for those that you're close to, pray for those that you wish you could be closer to, pray for those who have wronged you. Bless them. Do not persecute them. And it sounds backwards. It definitely feels backwards. But it's the way that Jesus operates, and that's how we want him to operate with us. So we should extend that to those around us. It starts with prayer.